All right, so you know how sometimes you just get this itch, this urge to like totally switch things up?
Oh, yeah.
And you start picturing yourself somewhere totally different. Maybe somewhere vibrant and buzzing with
Now
energy.
you know what you mean.
Like swapping your usual routine for the sights and sounds and smells and just the whole vibe of Bangkok.
Bangkok's definitely got that going on.
Whether it's a permanent move or just an extended stay to soak up the Thai lifestyle, I think a lot of people daydream about that. But before you book that one-way ticket, there's something pretty crucial to figure out:
Yeah, for sure.
the cost of living. And that's what we're diving deep into today.
Exactly. And we're not just speculating here. We've got some serious intel from moveinstay.com.
Oh, they're the real deal.
More than 25 years, they've been helping business travelers and expats make their way around Asia,
Yeah, you hear about them all the time.
finding apartments, houses, everything from short stays to, settling down for the long haul.
So we're talking about a resource that's seen it all when it comes to Bangkok.
Exactly.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to give you a crystal clear picture of what you might be spending each month in Bangkok,
Real practical stuff.
helping you build a budget that actually works so you can make those smart, informed decisions.
Because knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Now, we know some of you listening are seasoned globetrotters. You've done the international move thing before.
Multiple times.
But others might just be starting to toy with the idea of living abroad.
It can seem daunting.
So whether you're a veteran or a newbie, we're breaking it all down in a way that's easy to understand and hopefully even gets you thinking, oh, I hadn't considered that.
Those aha moments, love those.
And here's the thing about Bangkok's cost of living. It's a bit of a puzzle.
How so?
There's this potential for a really affordable lifestyle compared to what you might be used to.
Okay, that's good.
But a lot depends on the choices you make, your lifestyle, how you want to live.
Makes sense. So where do you even begin to unpack this cost of living puzzle?
Well, let's start with the biggest piece for most people living anywhere, really.
Yeah, what's going to eat up the biggest chunk of your budget?
Accommodation.
It's the foundation.
You got to have a place to call home.
Right.
And in a major city like Bangkok, that's usually going to be your #1 expense.
Okay, fair enough.
But here's where it gets super interesting. While rent can be a big factor, Bangkok has this amazing upside when it comes to food.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It can be surprisingly affordable, especially if you tap into the local food scene.
Which is incredible, right?
I mean, we're talking about mouth-watering meals for just a couple of dollars from street vendors and local eateries.
You can't beat that.
And speaking of getting around, how are you going to reach all those delicious food spots and explore the city?
Good point.
Well, Bangkok has this fantastic public transportation system.
Reliable.
Super efficient and relatively inexpensive. Think SkyTrain, subway buses, even riverboats.
So getting around without breaking the bank is totally doable.
Exactly. But it's not all about cheap eats and convenient transport.
Right? There's more to the picture.
Something absolutely essential for anyone thinking about moving abroad is healthcare.
Ah, yes. That's crucial.
You have to understand how the system works in Bangkok, especially for expats, and the role of health insurance.
Can't overlook that.
And it's easy to get caught up in those big expenses, but those smaller everyday costs, they matter too.
Like what kind of things?
Your phone plan, close those random convenience store runs.
The little things that sneak up on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On their own, they might seem insignificant, but they add up.
So true.
And, you see these articles online claiming you can live in Bangkok for, like, peanuts?
I've seen those.
While it's possible to live super frugally, those numbers often reflect a lifestyle that might not be realistic or comfortable for most people.
Yeah, you gotta be honest with yourself.
We're aiming for a realistic view based on what resources like moveandstay.com are telling people who are actually making the move.
Practical advice from people who've been there, done that. Okay, so we've got this overview of expenses. What are some of the key things that really affect the cost of living in Bangkok for an individual?
Location. Location, location. It's a cliche for a reason.
It always comes down to location, doesn't it?
Just like any city where you choose to live in Bangkok has a huge impact on your budget.
I'd imagine so.
Those trendy expat neighborhoods like Sukhumvit, they tend to be pricier.
That makes sense. Prime real estate.
But if you're willing to venture a bit further out from the center, you can often find more affordable options.
Trade-offs, right.
Exactly. And tied in with location is your choice of accommodation.
So many options.
Are you picturing yourself in a modern condo with all the bells and whistles?
A pool, a gym, a killer view.
Or are you more comfortable in a simpler apartment? That decision's going to have a big impact on your monthly rent.
For sure. And what about food? You mentioned how affordable the local food scene is, but what if you prefer cooking at home?
That's another key factor, your eating habits.
Do you hit the local markets? Stock up on fresh ingredients? Whip up your own meals?
Or are you more of a restaurant person, maybe craving those familiar tastes from back home?
That can definitely add up.
And then there's your lifestyle. How do you like to spend your free time?
What are your hobbies? Your social activities?
Are you a night owl, hitting the bars and clubs?
Oh,
Or do you prefer more low-key activities?
all of that influences your overall expenses.
All right, so let's take a step back and compare Bangkok to other big cities around the world. How does it stack up financially?
Okay, big picture time.
One of the things that makes Bangkok so appealing is that it generally offers more bang for your buck compared to places like London or New York.
Oh, I bet.
Your money will stretch much further in Bangkok, across the board, whether it's rent, groceries, entertainment.
So for the price of a tiny studio in London, you could be living large in Bangkok.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, think about it. For the cost of a small studio in London, you might snag a spacious one-bedroom condo with amenities in Bangkok.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff you can really dig into on moveandstay.com. You can compare those real-world listings and see the difference.
That's super helpful. But what about comparing Bangkok to other cities in Southeast Asia?
Okay, that's where it gets a bit more nuanced.
How so?
You might find that places like Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam have a slightly lower cost of living overall.
Interesting.
But Bangkok often offers a wider range of choices and amenities.
What do you mean?
Think about the established expat communities, the variety of international schools, the healthcare options.
The infrastructure.
Exactly. And those things might be important to some people, even if it means paying a bit more. And resources like moveandstay.com, they often highlight those factors for expats.
Good to know. Now, I always hear those figures about the average monthly cost for an expat, but they seem to be all over the place.
It's because there's no magic number that applies to everyone.
Right. It's individual.
It truly depends on your lifestyle, your spending habits, your priorities.
It's not one size fits all.
So if we had to rank some of these cities based on a typical expat's budget, we might put London and New York at the top as the priciest.
Makes sense.
Then Singapore, followed by Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur being somewhat similar.
Though you're saying Bangkok might offer a broader range of options.
Yeah, you could find a really basic lifestyle in KL for less, but Bangkok might give you more choices in terms of finding that sweet spot between cost and comfort.
Okay, that's helpful.
All right, let's get specific and talk about housing in Bangkok. What are the main types of places expats typically look for?
The usual suspects are condos, houses, and your standard apartments.
So something for everyone.
Condos are really popular with expats. You'll find tons of them listed on sites like moveandstay.com.
Why are they so popular?
They often come with those extras that make life a little easier, you know, swimming pools, gyms, sometimes even 24-hour security.
Makes you feel safe and taken care of.
Especially if you're new to the city.
Houses obviously offer more space.
Good for families or if you just like to spread out.
And you'll typically find more houses in the suburban areas, a bit outside the main city center.
Okay.
And then there are your standard apartments. They're everywhere in Bangkok and come in a wide range of prices and locations.
So it really comes down to personal preference and budget. And speaking of budget, let's talk about rental prices because there's a huge variation.
Give us some examples.
So if you're dreaming of a one-bedroom condo in a central, super convenient area like Sukhumvit, think about 15,000 to 30,000 baht per month.
That's the kind of place a lot of expats gravitate towards.
Right near all the action.
But if you're open to living a bit further out from the center, you could find a similar condo for less.
Maybe 8,000 to 15,000 baht.
Still a decent amount, but a noticeable difference. What about those who need more space, like families?
A house with 2 or 3 bedrooms in a more suburban setting, you're probably looking at 25,000 to 50,000 baht a month.
Okay, so the price goes up with space, which makes sense.
But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got those luxury houses in prime central locations.
Those can be eye-watering.
We're talking upwards of 100,000 bahts per month.
Wow. It's mind-boggling, the range.
It is, and it highlights how important location is. And another thing to keep in mind is proximity to public transportation.
The BTS and the MRT.
Yeah, being close to those lines can really push up rental costs.
Makes your commute a breeze, though.
For sure. And another thing to keep in mind is that the average asking rent for those really high quality grade A apartments has been going up lately.
So there's strong demand for those premium living spaces.
Definitely. And just for context for our listeners, grade A in Bangkok usually means a newer building with all the modern amenities, top-notch finishes, and often a prime location.
Makes sense. So beyond the base rent, what other housing costs should people factor into their budget?
Utilities, for one. Electricity can be a big one, especially with all that AC you might need.
Gets hot in Bangkok.
2,000 to 4,000 baht a month is a good starting point, but it could be more depending on your usage.
So being mindful of your energy consumption can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Water is usually less of a concern. Then there's internet, which is pretty essential these days.
Can't live without it.
You're looking at around $500 to $1,000 a month for a decent connection.
And what about when you first move in? Are there any upfront costs?
Yeah, most landlords will ask for a security deposit,
How much is that typically?
usually 1 to 3 months rent.
Okay, so that's something to have saved up.
And in some condo buildings, you might also have to pay monthly building management fees for things like maintenance and security.
Gotcha. Any final tips for navigating the Bangkok housing market?
Do your homework. Research different neighborhoods, figure out what's most important to you.
What are your priorities?
Do you want to be close to work, near good schools, in a lively expat community?
Right.
Some areas are definitely more expat friendly, which can be a big plus for some people.
And living near the coast might sound idyllic, but remember, those areas can sometimes be more expensive.
Good point.
And websites like moveandstay.com are a great resource for exploring different areas and seeing what's available and at what price.
They really let you get a feel for the market.
Okay, so let's move on to another essential part of life: food.
Everyone's got to eat.
We talked about how affordable it can be in Bangkok, but let's break it down. What's the real cost difference between eating out and cooking at home?
Bangkok is a foodie paradise. There's no doubt about it. And the street food scene is not only incredibly diverse and delicious, but it's also super budget friendly.
It's amazing how much flavor they pack into those dishes for so little money.
Right. You can grab a plate of pad thai or a bowl of noodles for like $1 or $2.
Sometimes even less.
But if you're eating out for every meal, even at those prices, it's going to add up over time.
So cooking at home is generally the more economical option?
If you're watching your budget, yeah. Especially if you embrace the local markets and take advantage of all the fresh produce.
Those markets are an experience in themselves.
You can find amazing fruits, vegetables, spices for a fraction of what you'd pay in a supermarket.
And bigger supermarkets like Tesco. They do have a good selection, but you'll notice imported items are pricier.
Which makes sense.
Sometimes moveandstay.com will even have blog posts or guides that point expats to the best local markets.
That's helpful.
So what would you say is a realistic monthly food budget for someone living in Bangkok?
It depends on your style, of course. If you're all about that street food life and local eateries, you could probably get by on around 8,000 baht a month.
That's impressive.
But if you like to mix it up, cook some meals at home, enjoy the occasional restaurant visit, then 10,000 to 15,000 baht is probably more realistic.
That gives you some flexibility.
And then if you're someone who loves fine dining and fancy imported groceries, your food costs are going to be higher.
Naturally.
I think a reasonable average for most expats incorporating a bit of everything is probably around 12,000 baht a month.
That sounds pretty doable.
And don't forget to factor in those occasional splurges.
You got to treat yourself.
Exactly. Now, for anyone planning a move to Bangkok, what are some of those must-try local dishes that are both delicious and easy on the wallet?
Oh, there's so many. Where do we even begin?
Pad Thai is a classic for a reason. It's everywhere, it's cheap, and it's incredibly flavorful.
Love a good pad thai.
Green curry is another must-try, whether you go with chicken or pork.
That coconut milk base is so good.
Mango sticky rice is the perfect sweet treat.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, you can't forget tom yum soup. That spicy, sour, fragrant broth is iconic.
It's a whole sensory experience.
And all of these dishes are readily available and won't break the bank.
So the key takeaway here is to really immerse yourself in the local cuisine, not just for your budget, but for the whole experience.
Exactly. Be adventurous. Try things you might not recognize. You might just discover a new favorite dish.
Just be careful with the spice levels at first.
Yeah, Thai food can be fiery.
All right, let's talk about getting around Bangkok.
Yeah.
What are the main transportation options and what do they cost?
Bangkok has a pretty impressive public transportation system, which is great if you're on a budget. The BTS SkyTrain and the MRT subway are modern, efficient, and a fantastic way to beat the traffic.
Tell us a bit more about those.
The BTS SkyTrain, it's an elevated train that connects a lot of the major areas popular with expats, shopping districts, business centers, residential neighborhoods.
So it's convenient.
Super convenient. And the fares are based on distance, so you'll typically pay between 16 and 59 baht per trip.
Not bad at all.
If you're going to be using it a lot, it's worth getting a stored value card. It can save you a bit of money, and it's just easier than buying single tickets all the time.
What about the MRT subway?
It's underground, and it's great for getting around the city center and connecting to other parts of Bangkok.
Similar fares?
Yeah, pretty similar, 16 to 42 baht per trip. And again, a stored value card is the way to go if you're a frequent rider.
Bangkok also has a huge network of buses.
Massive. And they're super cheap. We're talking 8 to 20 baht depending on the type of bus and how far you're going.
Any tips for navigating the bus system?
The non-air-conditioned buses are the cheapest option. But figuring out the routes and stops can be tricky if you don't speak Thai.
And what about those river boats I always see in pictures?
The Chao Phraya Express boat, it's not just a tourist thing, it's a legitimate way to get around.
Especially if you're near the river.
Yeah, it's a great way to see the city from a different perspective, and it's often faster than taking a taxi during rush hour.
And the fares are reasonable?
Totally 10 to 30 baht usually.
Okay, so public transport's pretty well covered. What about taxis and ride-hailing apps?
Taxis are everywhere in Bangkok, and they're generally affordable.
Any advice for using taxis?
Always make sure the driver uses the meter. The starting fare is 35 baht, and it goes up based on distance and time.
So traffic can affect the price.
Big time.
What about ride-hailing apps like Grab?
Grab is super popular and convenient. You can book a car or even a motorbike taxi right from your phone, and you see the fare up front.
Which is helpful for budgeting.
But keep in mind, Grab can be pricier than a meter taxi, especially during peak hours or in touristy areas.
And what about tuk-tuks?
Tuk-tuks, they're iconic. It's fun to ride in one at least once for the experience, but they're really geared towards tourists.
Any tips for tuk-tuk negotiations?
Always agree on the price before you get in and expect to pay more than you would for a taxi.
What about getting around by bike or on foot?
Bangkok's not the most bike-friendly or pedestrian-friendly city in the world, let's be honest.
Traffic can be intense.
But for shorter distances in certain neighborhoods, it's definitely doable. There are bike rental places around.
And some areas are more walkable than others.
Just be prepared for the heat and humidity, especially during the hot season.
Yeah, it can get pretty steamy.
And be extra cautious around traffic, whether you're biking or walking.
So what about owning a car or a motorbike? Is that common for expats in Bangkok?
Owning a vehicle gives you that freedom and independence to go wherever, whenever.
Can't beat that.
But it comes with costs.
Like what?
The purchase price, of course, insurance, maintenance, and fuel. As of January 2025, gasoline is about 45.67 baht per liter, and diesel is around 32.94.
So it's a significant investment to factor in.
Definitely. You have to weigh those costs against the convenience.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about healthcare. What should expats know about the healthcare system and costs in Bangkok?
Bangkok has a good standard of healthcare overall with both public and private hospitals.
What's the difference between the two?
Public hospitals are government-run and generally have lower costs, but you might face longer wait times, especially for non-emergency care.
Okay.
Private hospitals are known for their efficiency and higher level of comfort and service. They often cater to international patients and have English-speaking staff.
But they're more expensive.
Yeah, you'll generally pay more for private healthcare.
So what are the health insurance options for expats?
Health insurance is essential. You can't really get around it.
I'd imagine so.
Some people might have public health care benefits through their employer.
But most expats need to look into private insurance.
Yeah. There are local Thai insurance providers, which are usually cheaper, but their coverage might be limited to Thailand.
Okay.
And then there are international health insurance plans, which offer wider coverage but cost more.
Makes sense.
It's really important to check what your employer-provided insurance covers, especially if you're bringing your family.
Good point. What about typical medical expenses in Bangkok?
It really varies depending on where you go and what kind of treatment you need.
Give us a ballpark.
A basic consultation at a public hospital might be anywhere from 500 to 2,000 baht.
Okay.
But a specialist consultation at a private hospital Could easily start at 1,500 baht and go up from there.
Quite a difference.
And for a comprehensive health insurance plan, you're probably looking at annual premiums between 20,000 and 80,000 baht, depending on the level of coverage you choose.
So pays to shop around.
Definitely.
How easy is it for expats to access healthcare in Bangkok?
It's generally pretty straightforward. Private hospitals often have international patient departments with staff who can help with language barriers and paperwork.
Yeah, that's reassuring.
And many doctors in private hospitals speak English.
Good to know.
In public hospitals, the level of English might vary, so it's helpful to have a Thai-speaking friend or a translator if possible.
Makes sense.
It's always a good idea to research hospitals and clinics in your area ahead of time and keep emergency numbers handy.
Be prepared.
And make sure you understand your insurance coverage in different situations.
Bangkok's known for its vibrant leisure and entertainment scene. What kind of expenses should people expect for having fun?
Bangkok's got something for everyone when it comes to entertainment.
High-end, low-end, everything in between.
You can have incredible experiences on a budget, or you can splurge on luxuries. It's all up to you.
Give us some examples of the costs for popular things to do.
A lot of Bangkok's beautiful temples like Wat Arun and Wat Pho have very reasonable entrance fees, usually between 50 and 200 baht.
You can soak up some culture without breaking the bank.
Exactly. And exploring the markets like Chatuchak Weekend Market or the Dam Noan Saduak Floating Market is free to enter.
Those markets are an experience in themselves.
You just have to factor in the cost of getting there, especially for the floating markets, which are a bit outside the city.
Makes sense.
Museums like the Bangkok National Museum or the Jim Thompson House, they usually have entrance fees around 50 to 200 baht as well.
And then there are all the festivals that happen throughout the year.
Those are fantastic and often free. You get to experience Thai culture firsthand.
Love that. What about eating out and nightlife?
Well, as we said, street food is super budget-friendly, starting at around 40 baht a dish.
Amazing.
For a sit-down meal at a local restaurant, you're looking at 200 baht or more.
In a fancy international restaurant.
Could easily be over 1,000 baht per person.
Okay, so quite a range depending on your preference.
Same goes for nightlife. You can find local bars where a beer is like 80 baht.
Good deal.
But those trendy rooftop bars with killer views expect to pay 400 baht or more for a cocktail.
Wow. It pays to do your research.
Definitely. Set a budget for yourself and be mindful of cover charges and inflated prices in touristy areas.
Good tips. And for those weekend getaways outside of Bangkok,
Bangkok's a great base for exploring other parts of Thailand.
what are some popular destinations and what might those trips cost?
Pattaya, Ayutthaya, Hua Hin, they're all within easy reach.
Those are classic.
And a weekend trip, including transportation and activities, could cost anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 baht, depending on where you go and how you travel.
And remember, if you're driving, factor in those fuel costs we talked about earlier.
Right.
All right, last but not least, let's cover those miscellaneous everyday expenses that can sneak up on you.
The little things matter.
Like what?
Phone plans are a big one. Getting a local SIM card is much cheaper than using international roaming.
Good advice.
Expect to pay 300 to 800 baht a month for a decent data plan from one of the major providers.
Who are the main providers?
AIS, TrueMove HD Tech.
Okay.
Prepaid plans are a good option too. You can just top them up as needed.
What about clothes and shopping in general?
Bangkok is a shopper's paradise. You got everything from cheap and cheerful markets to high-end malls.
So there's something for every budget.
At markets like Pertunam and Chatuchak, you can find basic clothes for as low as 100 baht.
That's incredible.
But then you've got those fancy malls like Siam Paragon and Central World where you can find designer brands and luxury goods.
It's all about choices.
Don't forget to budget for toiletries and personal care items too.
Those add up.
For a lot of expats, Bangkok's shopping scene is a major perk.
And then there are those unexpected costs that life throws at you.
Always happens.
Like what kind of things?
Visa extensions. Those fees vary depending on your visa type.
Okay.
Gifts for special occasions.
Can't forget those.
And then random repairs for your phone, your laptop, your AC. Those things always seem to pop up at the worst time.
So having an emergency fund is crucial.
It really gives you peace of mind.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the cost of living in Bangkok, what's the most important thing for people to remember?
The key takeaway is that the cost of living in Bangkok is incredibly flexible. It really depends on your individual choices and priorities.
You can make it work for you.
Exactly. You can find amazing deals, especially for food and transportation.
That's encouraging.
But housing can be a big expense if you're not strategic about where you live and what kind of place you choose.
Location is key.
And that's where resources like moveandstay.com come in handy. They give you a real sense of what's out there and at what price.
So smart spending habits and thorough research are essential.
Absolutely. Every expat's experience is going to be different.
Right.
Being flexible, open to new experiences, and willing to adapt your lifestyle, those are all important for making the most of your time in Bangkok.
So as you're thinking about all the costs we've talked about today, here's a final thought for you.
Okay, I'm listening.
If you were to move to Bangkok, what aspects of your current lifestyle would you prioritize or maybe adjust?
Interesting question.
And how do you think those changes would shape your daily experiences in this amazing city?
That's something to really ponder.
It's food for thought as you weigh your options and explore the possibilities of a life in Bangkok.
Thanks for getting us thinking.